Welcome, everybody, to the Enough to Keep Going podcast. This is episode number 24, coming at you on Tuesday, November 28th. All the Black Friday, Cyber Monday craziness is over. Hopefully, everybody got what they wanted or we're looking for, we're searching for. I'm your host, Osiris Prime. With me tonight, we have Mr. Agasicles Stamos. I don't know how to pronounce your last name. I think that's the problem I have.
Stamos.
Stamos, okay. The initial one I can do.
Yeah.
Unlike some people who I'm not going to name, DBQ Hams.
So bad on me. I put the phonetic pronunciation in the rundown or in the monthly schedule for my first name, but not for the second name.
Right.
You all have once again undone me,
Right.
despite my best efforts.
Just when you thought you had it good, but no. How's it going? How was your holiday weekend? Long holiday weekend, hopefully.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was horrible, but the first half of it. But then we beat feet in retreat and admitted that we were not going to be successful at our initial attempt, and licked our wounds and had a better time once everybody was back home.
Okay.
So unfortunate, but it allowed me access back to the Geek Command Center. So I really didn't complain once everybody else had gone to bed once we got back. So.
Nice. It can't all be perfect every time, every day.
Right.
And bringing up the we're watching our backs is Mr. Swiss Guard. Swiss, how's it going?
Not bad. How's everybody? Hope everybody doesn't sound so good. We're off to a bad start with Zeus's holiday fiasco. It almost sounds like. I wish I could hear the full story, but no. My holiday was adequate. Not everything can be emotional high, but it wasn't an emotional low, so it was mediocre.
It was me?
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's better than being terrible, so that's something, I suppose. All right, so let's get going here. So actually, we're gonna flip the script here a little bit. We're gonna jump into our playlist real quick and just kind of name a couple of games we've been playing this past week or so, and then we'll jump into our topic, which is first party, third party kind of discussion that we're gonna do here tonight. So let's start off with Mr. Agasicles. What have you been playing this past weekend?
Yeah, so this is really kind of, for me, was how my playlist broke over the Thanksgiving break. So just before leaving, I wrapped up a session in Destiny OG that I was playing on the PlayStation 4 Pro. So I've been checking out what original Destiny looks like with the PlayStation 4, and I don't want to say enhancements, I guess PlayStation 4 Boost Mode, which kind of enhances everything, whether the developers have implemented any additional 4K assets or HDR. Anyway, and also my TV, as far as I can tell, this may not be super technically accurate, but does some type of HDR kind of overlay on its own if you set that mode. So there's some degree of color enhancement whether your content has HDR or not. So I was checking that out just before we took off on the break and wrapped up that session just before we left. And then I've been playing quite a few other things, particularly while I was on the go during Thanksgiving. But since I've been back, I've been dumping a lot of time into this year's release of Prey. And I've been playing that on PlayStation 4. So this is the Bethesda Softworks published game by Arcane Studios, which was the new vector that they took off on when Human Head Studios, who had made the first Prey back in 2006, couldn't get Prey 2 wired up the way Bethesda wanted it, and completed when Bethesda wanted it after taking it over from 3D Realms. So development hell the first time around, development hell the second time around, with the end result being that Bethesda took it and handed it off to Arcane. So it's really kind of proving out to be a spiritual successor to System. The web says System Shock. I say System Shock 2. I didn't play the original System Shock, but I did play System Shock 2 by Irrational Games. And also there are kind of elements of BioShock in there, which makes sense since Irrational also did BioShock, coming back around to kind of the setup that they used in System Shock 2. So it is slow going and a bit plodding, but I'm getting through it. It is not Destiny or Call of Duty, so you have to kind of temper your expectations of pace, and it's a lot more kind of wandering around and figuring things out than shooting.
Nice. All right, so I'll jump into mine real quick here. So actually, I played a lot this past weekend, mostly on the Switch. But we're just gonna do a few quick ones right now. It's Skyrim, of course. I'm playing on the Switch, loving that game, just like I did on the 360 and the Xbox One. Just nice that it's portable. I can play it wherever I'm at. Looks great. Pretty much the same thing like I was talking about last week. It looks great. For the system. Just kind of getting lost in the world right now. I think I did really just past the first level, like the tutorial level, and I haven't really touched the story since the main storyline. So I'm just kind of going off and doing side quests and stuff like that. So having fun with that as usual. And then I actually played the Wii U. Oddly enough, might be kind of odd that I brought that back. But I had a couple of requests from my family. My son wanted to play Mario Kart, and I don't have that on the Switch yet, which is kind of amazing because I love Mario Kart. But I figured since I have it on the Wii U, I can just I'll get it when eventually, hopefully, it goes on sale on the Switch side. So hopefully that won't be too late in the cycle, since obviously Nintendo likes to wait on dropping the prices of their mainline games. So I was playing that with my son a little bit, and he's been playing it. And then my wife, she wanted to play Dr. Mario. So and that's on the Wii U, but technically that was on the Wii originally, but I had ported it over to the Wii U when I got that system. So we were playing that a couple nights ago, actually for a few nights that we played that. So that was fun. Puzzle game, if you don't know what it is, it's like the little germs and different colored germs on the board, and the pills drop down. You kind of just match up the colors. So sounds easy, but obviously it starts to get faster, and it starts to get a little bit harder because you gotta switch the pill, the certain ways, and there's different colors, so it's not all the same color each time. So it's pretty cool. So it was fun. So it was fun. I played some games with my wife and son over the weekend. So that was cool. Like I said, and then on the Switch side, once again, I kind of went through my games, and I was kind of doing, I guess, Clay's thing where I was giving each game its due time, since I've kind of been neglecting some of the games on there. So I kind of did that for almost all the games, but I think there was a few that I missed out just because there was a couple updates that were running, so I just kind of passed them up while the updates were going. So other than that was pretty much it. Looks like you've been playing a little Nintendo and Sony yourself, Mr. Swissguard.
Yeah, mostly I've been playing Horizon Zero Dawn because it's kind of the game that's captured my heart right now. I haven't really touched the main quest. There's a lot of stuff to do, so I've been doing side quests and whatnot. And I've noticed they provide suggested, I guess, levels for each quest, and I'm starting to vastly exceed the main quest level. So I might have to get off some of these side quests and start doing that. On Black Friday, I didn't go to the store because that is makes me queasy just thinking about trying not to fight through the crowds. But I did see some stuff on the eShop, and Nintendo had Zelda Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons on sale. So normally they were $6 a piece, and they had them on sale 50% off, so they're $3 a piece. And for whatever reason, way back in the day, they came out for the Game Boy Color in 2001, and I had never gotten them. Even though I'm a huge Zelda fan, I tend to mostly stick to the main console games. And I had heard that the Oracle games were pretty good, and the puzzles were interesting. So for $6, I picked them up, and I played a little bit of Oracle of Ages. And on the one hand, it was like really trippy to go back in time in game design. But on the other hand, it's like, man, games have come a long way in the last 16 years. So, but it was good. So that's about it. Played a little Wolfenstein 2 somewhere in there, but I was able to dedicate a lot of time to Horizon Zero Dawn, so that was nice.
Nice. I can't remember. Is Horizon, is that like a total open world game, or is there just like big sections you kind of go in between two?
It seems pretty open. I mostly confine myself to one part of the map so far, just because that's where my quests are. But, well, I shouldn't say that. There's a part where like, I can tell like there's a quest that I have to do to open like a huge another part of the map. They won't let me, the storyline's like, oh, you need to do this before they'll let you over there. So, but I wouldn't say that it's terribly restrictive. It's the section I'm in is really big. So, but it's still, your map has all the quests on it, like the objectives and whatnot. So it doesn't have the exploration feel that a Zelda has, for example.
Okay, nice. Yeah, that's definitely. I don't have a PS4, PS4 or PS4 Pro, but that was definitely a game that I saw that I thought, ooh, that looks pretty cool. So if I ever do get one, I'm definitely gonna pick up that game. So
you need to.
that sounds like that's right up my wheelhouse there. So should be good. All right. So speaking of Horizon Zero Dawn and Zelda and Mario, as we're talking about these games, and even Prey and Destiny. So our topic this week, we're going to talk first party versus third party, is how we have it here in our notes. Big grudge match. So is this, to you guys, is this still a thing to you? Do you? I mean, obviously, like Zeus, you have, or I guess, Clayz, you have all the consoles going at your household. Swiss, you have, but just PS4 and Nintendo, like Switch and 3DS, obviously.
Yeah, I'm basically a Sony Nintendo person.
And then in my house, I have Xbox. I'm Xbox and Nintendo, so we got a little bit of each of everything. But do you still, like, how do you do like the first party and third party? Do you like do you always, as far as third party goes, do you always say, okay, here I'm just going to do it on, and maybe this is more for you, Zeus, I'm just going to do it on Xbox side or Sony side or stuff like that, or do you kind of spread the wealth around, so to speak? And you have PC too, obviously, that you work with. We could throw that in there too, I suppose. Even though I guess there's no really first party PC games, but there's still stuff that maybe just is on PC that you can't really play on anything else. So do you try to cater to one system or another, or do you kind of just how do you handle that?
So is this and I'm sorry, so is this about the first question is about third party?
Yeah, I'm gonna jump to third party first. Sorry.
Yeah, so no, right now it's well, I mean, maybe that's not a completely honest answer. So let me wind it back a little. So in console generation 6, that was definitely the case, right? So OG Xbox and PlayStation 2, that was definitely my scheme, right? I typically played third party. I take that back. So that was a little different. So OG Xbox and PlayStation 2 for me were about genres of games. So I typically played sports games on Xbox because I felt like they just had the better implementation of the third-party sports franchises. So I played Madden on Xbox and so on. And maybe I need to go back. I think I might be remembering that incorrectly. Console generation 7, I could definitely say that console generation, I was definitely, if there was a third-party game, I would generally play it on Xbox 360 before I played it on PlayStation 3, because I felt like it typically tended to look better and play better on Xbox, and definitely in that generation, it was definitely about where my friends were, right? So if it was a multiplayer game, I was playing on 360. This generation, really kind of not so much, and that's a half-handed answer, because for this first half of the generation, I've just played third-party games wherever I happen to play them. Now, though, having done the 4K conversion this winter, and I got to see how burdensome it is up front. But I'm saying I'm definitely in these first couple games that I'm looking at procuring after doing the conversion. It's definitely going to be, I'm going to go and hit the web and look and see, excuse me, what the word is on the street about like what Xbox One X enhancements look like versus PlayStation 4 Pro enhancements look like, and make my choice based on that.
Nice. Swiss, how about you? I don't know if have you always been Sony and Nintendo, or have you ever dipped into Xbox at all? Back in the day.
I played Xbox maybe at my cousin's house, but honestly, the big draw for me with the PlayStation 2 was exclusives. Square Enix is not a first-party studio, but back in the PS2 days, you couldn't get a Final Fantasy X on the Xbox, so that drove my decision making there. And for PS3, I didn't have to pay Xbox Live fees to play online, and a lot of my friends had PlayStation, so it was natural for me to go that direction, and I could justify the purchase to my wife because I'm like, hey, we can do Blu-ray DVDs on this and stream Netflix. So not that 360 didn't have capabilities like that, but it hit all my needs. So, but as far as third-party decision making, so I don't really have to. Obviously, I don't have to choose between Sony and Microsoft, Xbox, but I do have to sometimes select between a PC and Sony's console. One recently I got Witcher 3, so I think they had a sale because it was the 10th anniversary of The Witcher, and I picked it up, and I chose to get on the PC. Mostly part of it I think is going to come down to like the genre of the game and me deciding when I'll be able to actually play it. So for me, where my computer's located, it's kind of in my upstairs formal room thing. The kids' playroom is downstairs where the PS4 is. If I want to get away and sink into like an RPG like that, PC is more natural. Borderlands 2, I picked up on the PC. I want to be able to play Steam online, with my brother, and doesn't cost us anything. And so it kind of depends on the genre. There's a lot of games coming out that are going to be coming out for the Switch that I probably wouldn't have an interest in playing them on the Switch, even though they've been on the PS4. Wolfenstein 2, I already bought it on the PS4. I know it's coming out on the Switch. The portability doesn't excite me as much for that game. I like the controller for the PS4 to be able to play like a shooter like that. So, it's a little bit easier for me, I guess, to select because the platforms are so different. The inputs are so different between the Switch, the PS4, and the PC. With the Xbox and the PS4, I can see it being much more of a toss-up.
Yeah, as for me, like I said, I have Xbox and the Switch. So once again, it's kind of same deal as you. There's really no comparison. I can't. There's not going to be a game really that comes out at the same time. Like Wolfenstein came out already. It's obviously delayed on the Switch for whatever reasons. They didn't release it right away with the PS4 and Xbox, probably because obviously it's the higher fidelity and better graphics and all that. So I'll probably pick it up on the Switch when it comes out, more than likely. Not really sure, but as back in the day though, kind of like Cleves was talking about, I actually did have all the consoles. I had the I had PS2. Well, I guess I shouldn't say I had all the consoles. I had a PS2 and Xbox 360. I know there's PS3 in there, but I didn't have the PS3 and Nintendo systems. And I think at the beginning I was more Nintendo, and then slowly I just kind of got converted over to the Xbox 360. I'm not really sure like how or why that happened. It might have been because I wasn't really into shooters at that point. At least not on the console. I was on the PC. Like I played a lot of Call of Duty on the PC, but I didn't make that transition until a lot later as far as the shooters go on the consoles. So I started actually playing RPGs. So I was playing like Oblivion and there's another game which I can't. Escapes
the Western RPGs.
Yeah, more of those because I wasn't really into the JRPGs at that point either. Now I kind of get into that a little bit more, but yeah, I was doing more of the Western ones, so I kind of gravitated more to that, and I don't know, I just kind of switched eventually, maybe more convenience, and just because my PC was starting to get old, and I didn't feel like upgrading stuff, so I kind of just switched to the consoles as far as the shooter is concerned. So that was kind of just a given, and I just kind of went with 360, even though I bought GameCube and Wii and Wii U, and obviously now Switch, which has converted me back now. But just for some reason, I was sticking with the 360. I did have friends that were playing on that system, so unfortunately, I didn't have a lot of friends that had it. So, and then I usually game like late at night, so and they weren't on at that time, so that wasn't really a factor for me for the 360. I think it was just more of a convenience thing, just because PC was dying for me, at least for me. Obviously, it's still going strong. But yeah, I think that was the only reason I started, going with the 360. And then obviously, I was playing Halo and Call of Duty and, all these other shooters, and that kind of just natural progression into the Xbox One. And that's when kind of the end cycle of the 360 is when I started getting into the CAG website. So I did start to have more people that I could play with, and most of those people had the Xbox. So I just kind of like, all right, I'll just, keep with the Xbox and just keep going with the Xbox One. So kind of just led into that. But, and you, Swiss, you talked about it, you stayed with Sony mostly because your friends stayed with Sony. So, I mean, as far as first party goes, were you always big into the first party games, or was that like, how did that come about? Did you even care that, okay, here I can get Final, obviously you said Final Fantasy, but other games like Uncharted and like Killzone and what was that other shooter they had on the PS3? The Aliens.
Resistance, Fall of Man.
Yeah. So I mean, did you get into those games too, or were they just kind of like, oh, it's Sony, so maybe I'll try them out, or I mean, how did that come about?
Well, one of the big attractions for the PlayStation 2 was that it was backwards compatible with PlayStation 1, and Final Fantasy. I wanted to try the later Final Fantasies out, but Metal Gear Solid was another big push. Now, again, that's not a Sony first-party studio, but for a while there, that was an exclusive franchise. It wasn't until fairly recently that they started making them on the Xbox. So yeah, there were some games. I have the Uncharted games. I have not really played through them yet. I started Uncharted 2 and stopped. I don't know what happened. But yeah, definitely want to pick those up, and then stuff like Horizon Zero Dawn. I just the first party games and like the system movers on Microsoft side interested me less than the Sony ones. Like when you talk Microsoft, Xbox and Xbox 360, what do you think of? You think of Halo, you think of Gears of War, and you think of Fable. And with the exception of Fable, I really wasn't as excited about that lineup. And Sony has a much stronger like RPG adventure lineup, I guess.
So I don't know that I'd agree with you that people think of Fable. So, not in a positive light. The third one to me in that triumvirate is Forza. But you said two interesting things that I kind of wanted to follow up on. So number one, you kind of tilted at the topic label that we applied, right? So we called this first party versus third party, but probably the reality is we're really talking exclusives versus third party, or exclusives versus multi-platform is probably a better topic. And I would say that not just to us, but I would also say that to the media, who is kind of stumping this topic around as a controversy and a thing to be expounded upon. Now, part of the reality maybe is that in the transition from generation 7 to 8, what we've seen is a slow evolution to where those things are almost synonymous in a lot of cases, that that the only people making exclusive content for a given console are first-party studios, right? Because we've kind of gotten away from what you mentioned, Swiss, that we used to see back in Gen 6 on the PlayStation 2 and Xbox, where we used to see you could be a third party, but you might just elect to only develop for a specific console. But as the size of games and complexity of games grew larger and the economics started to shift, companies started moving away from that because they went, it doesn't make sense for us to spend all this money on a game and only sell it for one console. The ROI is better if we port the game over to another console and or the PC. So I think these things have kind of become synonymous, but I think at their root, we're really talking exclusives versus multi-platform.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And then the other thing, well, go ahead and say what you were going to say, Prime, because this might, the other thing I'm going to mention about what Swiss said might spool us off in a different direction. So I'll hold it onto it until you.
Okay, no, I was just going to say, even with those third parties, well, like you're saying, now we even have the timed exclusive, which is maybe a right subject. So
yeah,
let's just call that what it is and say that that's not an exclusive.
Exactly.
No, that's a little heavy-handed, right? The reality is that does make a difference. It creates a certain dynamic in the market. But just to compartmentalize these things, maybe we won't talk about. Well, maybe we talk about those closer to the end.
Okay.
So the other thing, Swiss, that I thought that you mentioned is you mentioned system movers, and that's a little interesting to me. So I think that Microsoft definitively has system moving games. Like Forza drops and people go buy an Xbox to get that version of Forza.
I'll let you continue. But yeah. The reason I said Fable,
I think I might butt in there too, actually.
And I'm fine with Fable. Fable's more a matter of.
I just remember distinctly, I was in geology lab at college, and this guy comes in, and he was like, "Oh my God, I just bought an Xbox. I played Fable at my friend's house, and it was awesome." And the next day, when we were at lab again, or the next week, he was like, "I went out and bought an Xbox that night for Fable, and I've been playing it for like $100." And that was a system mover for, I guess, some people in the populace.
Yeah, so probably for Xbox 360 when it first dropped. So probably, I'm sorry, go ahead. I don't know who was up next, Swiss or Prod. I was going to come back around.
He's about to argue with you because he doesn't like racing games.
Yeah.
And he's about to attack your biases.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say. No, that's fine. No, I was going to say, I think it's more that the system seller is more prevalent, like maybe back in the 360 original Xbox days, and maybe more so now. Yeah, people like, Forza, and people will go out maybe and buy the console for Forza. And this is just, exclusively for Forza I'm talking about. But those are probably just the people that maybe just play that game solely, potentially. So yeah, of course they're going to come, maybe they just didn't buy the Xbox One right away just because they have, 360, they're playing Forza on there and maybe a couple other games. But, and then Xbox One comes out and they're like, oh, hey, this is, the new console, that's the new Forza game. So I'm going to buy it. I don't know if there's such a huge audience for Forza. And maybe that's just me just because I don't follow the racing genre, the racing sims genre that well. But I never thought of Forza as a system seller to me. And like I said, that's because I don't follow it. So I'm just kind of blind to it. Maybe I might be wrong. So
yeah, I guess my cut is I think it's a game that sells that system. I think whether you are hyper focused on that game solely or whether or not you're I don't include Forza in my mind in the as typifying the type of gamer who only plays two games, like we talked about a couple weeks ago, right? I would put like I said, in the past I would put like Madden and Call of Duty in that. I think there's a type of gamer who that's what they play. I think now in console generation 8, there are probably gamers that only play shooters, right? That play Destiny because they play that all the time, and then they augment that with Battlefield. I mean, in fact, some of the guys at my new job, right? They've said that that's all that they play. And one of those is a community game, so they either play Destiny or Overwatch, and then they augment that with Call of Duty, Battlefield, maybe Titanfall, whatever. So I mean, all I'm saying in the context of that discussion is that I think there are games that some slice of the install base, they go buy that console for in terms of exclusives, right? So,
well, I know we're kind of touching it with like, we don't feel, it doesn't sound like we feel super confident with Sony and Microsoft as far as like system movers, but we haven't really brought Nintendo into the discussion yet. And
so, well, just before you continue, I do. I think that today there are. Well, I think they're two different things. So I think system mover versus, I don't know, system mover versus system seller. Maybe I'm not breaking it down correctly, or two different things. I think there are exclusives or a collection of exclusives that cause you to select a console, right? So for the person they're going to buy a console, right? No matter what, like it's not a question of, am I going to buy a console or not? Every generation, they're going to buy a console. I think there are some people who are planted in camps that say, because I love Forza, Halo, and Gears of War, I am buying Xbox. Now, I think that there are games that are exclusives that people who are on the fence, or people who go, I'm buying one console each generation, and it really doesn't matter to me if I'm Nintendo, PlayStation, or Xbox. I think that latter group is rare, because I think most people say, if they're not multi-platform, they say, I'm an Xbox person or a PlayStation person. But I think for the fence riders, or people who are going to augment with a secondary console, I think that there are games that drop that are exclusives that cause those people to tip over and say, that's a game that I want to play, and it's only on that platform, so I'm going to go buy that platform. So where you, just to round out where I was going with this whole thing, so you can move on to talk about the Nintendo thing. So I feel like there are definitely system sellers for Microsoft. I don't know that I feel that there are system sellers for PlayStation that are individual titles, meaning I feel like there are people who are embedded in the Halo camp who say Halo's on Xbox, so I play Xbox. I think for PlayStation, I can't think of any singular game that makes people go, I'm a PlayStation person. I would, if they would release more than one version every decade, I would say maybe that's Gran Turismo. But I think we've evolved past an age where that franchise is relevant anymore. With PlayStation, I feel like you get much more of that bucket of titles where a person says, well, I love, and I don't know what they would be today. That's another problem with this conversation.
Like
right?
RPGs or something? Like
I guess
you can't pinpoint it, is what you're trying to say.
Not on PlayStation 4, right? So for PlayStation 3, maybe I would have said, okay, I love Resistance, Infamous, and maybe I would have still said Gran Turismo, so I'm going to buy PlayStation 3, right? Or maybe Killzone. But PlayStation today is not doing the franchises in Generation 8 that it did in Generation 7, right? So I don't know where the relevance of that exclusives lie. And once I let Swiss talk, we can swing back to how I feel like Sony's strategy in this generation is starkly different than what they did last generation, and that is the case for a specific business reason.
Actually, if we can pull that thread, because with the Nintendo, I was just going to say, like, Nintendo, it's built on, first party franchises. I think that's pretty obvious. But yeah, Sony, like, even their mascot, like, I mean, you think Microsoft, you think Master Chief and everything, and like I remember there was a time when it was Crash Bandicoot, kinda. There was a time when it was Spyro the Dragon, kinda, but they don't have that. And nowadays, like you said, the bucket, it's more the breadth of exclusive titles. But we're also looking at this from a very American perspective. And if you think about like the Japanese market, like Microsoft is not making great inroads there. And it's, for whatever reason, there's like a whole genres of games like JRPGs. You don't find many of them on Xbox that are exclusive to Sony. So there's a lot of people that, even though now like the stuff like Final Fantasy is coming out a little bit on multiple consoles, but Dragon Quest, I don't think that's on Xbox. There's content out there that is still in Sony's wheelhouse that the American consumer, by and large, probably, it's not system sellers for the American consumer, but it's there. That exclusivity is there, I guess, is what I'm trying to drive at.
So yeah, I guess my overall general feel in the discussion between Microsoft and Sony is that Sony, it's funny, and I think it's at the root of where we are. So I guess overall on this topic, I feel like the media has made a very big deal out of what some people talk a lack of first party titles from Microsoft, and I think what I was saying, what they really mean is a lack of exclusive titles. So I think that is relevant for Microsoft, because I feel like the presence of first-party exclusive titles on Microsoft has always had a larger business impact than on Sony. Meaning, when you have an install base of Xboxes and you drop Halo, Forza, and Gears of War, a larger percentage of your user install base goes and buys those games. I feel like Microsoft's historic approach has been to keep a relatively small number of first-party studios working on flagship, like atomic bomb size franchises that they know when they drop, millions of people are going to go buy them. Right? It's Halo drops, you kind of don't really question whether or not it's going to sell. Right? Forza drops, you don't really question how much that's going to sell. Sony, like, go back to Generation 7, right? They had a widely varied stable of first-party studios. Their exclusives were also widely varied, right? So one exclusive to the next was not in the same vein. But in Generation 7, they also closed a ton of those studios, right? When a studio dropped a game and it didn't perform to what Sony's desired metrics were, that studio was closed. And so it was a different type of strategy. It was highly distributed. And when you looked at the sales numbers, and I wrote a specific article about this a few years ago that got people all spun up because they didn't want to actually talk about math. So, but a given singular Sony exclusive does not sell anywhere near the numbers of Halo. So Sony releasing an exclusive isn't as big a deal, I feel like, to their bottom line as an individual release as it is to Microsoft. So that's, I mean, now in Generation 8, I would say Sony recognized that and swerved their tactic to currying favor with third parties, which is something they didn't do as well in Generation 7. And if you go back to Generation 7, a lot of gamers have forgotten, it used to be Call of Duty. Activision showed up on the stage with Microsoft at E3, and the topic of exclusive content and where maps dropped first was on Xbox. Sony, I believe, what it seems like, took money that they would have in last generation used to fund employees and buildings and other capital infrastructure expenditures for their 20-something different studios that they had working on titles that not a lot of people bought. They took that money and they pointed it at third parties and they pointed it at indies, and they increased the quality and quantity of content that they had coming from that vector. And I haven't heard about a lot of studios being closed in Gen 8. And I think Sony has been more careful about selecting what exclusive titles they were going to release on PlayStation. So I feel like this whole discussion of like Microsoft doesn't have enough of this, and so like I don't think that's the case. I think that they changed business strategies, and I think unfortunately Microsoft maybe made not a great choice by saying we don't need as many first-party exclusives as we had last generation. For them, I think that was a bad choice, but I don't know if it's as big a deal as what the media is making it out to be.
Well, I guess the interesting thing though that I kind of see too is when this generation, the Generation 8, Xbox One and PS4 started, a lot of people, it was kind of the opposite. A lot of people were kind of ragging on Sony because they didn't have the exclusives, and praising Microsoft because they were pretty much pumping them out pretty quick. Now it's pretty much flipped the script, in that situation. And I mean, I guess there's only so many games. I mean, you can throw out there. I mean, at a time, I know you can do new IPs. Obviously, a lot of that stuff is sequels and stuff. Obviously, you got Halo 5, and you got the Forzas, and you got Gears of War 4, I believe.
Well, yeah, but let me see, what exclusives has Sony brought to bear? Like, so I agree with you. At the outset of this generation, Sony didn't have a lot of exclusives, and a lot of people complained. They're like, "Where's the next Infamous? Where's the next, Jack and Daxter?" Right? And what I try to tell people is they're not here because they didn't matter, right? You love them, and this was the argument that I had with people when I wrote this article. Yes, there were people who, for those franchises, they were beloved, but if you think about it, right, it's the same, that generation. It's the same number of players, right? All that meant was that their player base was highly fragmented against this wide distribution of exclusives that they did. When Sony would release those exclusives, everybody didn't go buy Resistance, everybody didn't go buy Infamous, everybody didn't go buy Jack and Daxter, right? What happened was 1/3 of the people went and bought Resistance, 1/3 of the people went and bought Jack and Daxter, and 1/3 of the people went and bought, whatever. And so they were fragmenting that user base, and they catered to a lot of different gamers. But what they saw during that generation was that didn't get them more people buying PlayStation 3 until like the end of the console's life cycle when they caught up. But I get it. I don't disagree with you. I think there's a feeling now that PlayStation has more exclusives. But I force myself when I catch myself saying these things, but then I go, okay, but what are they? Because the only one of any significance in my head that's been released this year is Horizon Zero Dawn.
Right. No, yeah, and I agree. And I was just bringing that up just because of that argument that people were having that, Microsoft doesn't have anything now and Sony has everything. But I was just kind of, saying that how it was, reversed, when it first, the generation first started. I think it's just a cycle thing. I mean, you can only, throw so many games out there at a time. Obviously, these companies are closing, some companies down too, that obviously is going to hurt them when they're trying to, get games out there. So I don't know. And I don't know how it's going to evolve, in the future as, now we got the Xbox One X, and a PS4 Pro, and who knows what, maybe there'll be another iteration of the PlayStation coming up in, another year or two, who knows? But, we don't even know how that's going to work out now, how the consoles are going to work. They're just going to do one like every other year or every couple of years. So, what are the exclusives are going to become? Are they going to become exclusive to just that console? Or are they going to become, exclusive, are they going to be able to be played on, obviously with Xbox now, they're saying they're going to be played on, all the iterations of Xbox family, Xbox One family. But as that goes on, are they going to eventually cut out, OG Xbox One, which is what I have still right now? I don't have an S and I don't have an Xbox One X, either one. So am I going to be screwed? I don't really want to, fork over another $500. I mean, obviously Xbox One S is a little bit cheaper. There's always sales for those, but I mean, what do exclusives become in the future? I mean, will there be, multi? Will they just go multi-platform? I mean, I don't see what the future holds.
I mean, the Sony and Microsoft are going to want to have something to discriminate themselves from the competition, right? So there's always going to be some form of exclusive. And Zeus, Sony beyond Horizon Zero Dawn, I guess this year would be that. But you also have like The Last of Us that won a ton of Game of the Year awards and everything, and that's.
And I agree with you, it did, but it relates.
But it's not right. I understand what you're saying, like and it's a great point. Like with Microsoft, everybody would get Halo. That was the thing, and I guess that's what confuses me, like about what's going on now, is that they just aren't leveraging that. I don't get the sense that they're leveraging that. Like when the Xbox One X at EA came out, they weren't talking, hey man, check out Halo 6 or whatever. Look how great it looks on Xbox One X. They're just like, this is Xbox One X. It's the world's most powerful console. And, it's still about the software. Like, that's almost like the irony of Microsoft right now, is that their company was founded because they understood that DOS was important because it could exist beyond any hardware. Like the software was the important thing. And then when they came out with the Xbox, you had Halo, which was a great game. It was exclusive, and it brought a level of community gaming, competitive shooters to consoles that, on a scale that had never been seen before, right? I mean, that was like the first big home console, I guess, shooter. So they were leveraging their software to great effect. And it just, I guess maybe they just don't, like Prime was kind of getting at, maybe they just don't feel like they can stand on those specific IPs anymore. Like, I mean, people get Call of Duty fatigue, are people going to get Halo fatigue, especially after Bungie split off? And maybe that's the answer. Maybe the fact that Bungie going and doing its own thing had more of a profound impact upon Microsoft than we realized at the time.
Yeah, it could be. I feel like there's something weird going on with them planning out their release cycles as part of it, right? Like, so Halo 5 was 2015, right? And so, I mean, part of what's shifting around on Microsoft that they haven't reacted to is the fact that the market has gone to these annual release cycles for big franchises, and Microsoft has said, hey, we're not going to do that. And I'm kind of like, okay, that's fine, but what happens when you're 2 years without a Halo and you don't say anything about it, right? Like, okay, fine, don't show footage at E3, but let's not be silent about it, right? And I think that's what's causing a lot of this concern is, because they haven't said anything, people have this impression that it's not being worked on, which obviously isn't the case, but it's weird too. So right now, if we go with those three big franchises, right, they're on alternating year. They're in a 3-year cycle, right, between those three franchises, right? So we got Halo in 2015, we got Gears of War in 2016, and we're getting a Forza this year. Now, the truth of the matter is that the Forza franchise is kind of on an alternate year cycle between Forza Motorsport and Forza Horizon, but that's very encapsulated. Now, the Horizon guys, right, are being authorized to go off and build some new action kind of RPG thing. What I really haven't seen is I haven't seen any reporting that says, and they're still going to be doing Forza Horizon. I know that they added members of their team. I want to say maybe there was word that they added as many 200. Maybe that's enough for them to do both concurrently. I'm not certain. But I think what's causing the shaky confidence in the Microsoft camp is we don't have a horizon on when the next Halo will drop. If we assume it's 2018, great. But normally if something was coming then, we would have heard about it by now. And we don't know what's next in store for Gears of War. And as you mentioned, Swiss, maybe there's some fatigue. So I think a lot of the churn is about where are the franchises that we know should be coming, what's being dropped in between, and if those studios are being converted to work on other stuff, is it completely a digital flip, right, from a 0 to a 1? Does that mean that they have to drop whatever they've been doing before? And what replaces that space? So, in the meantime, I feel like the sense that Sony has a bunch of exclusives is not borne out by the numbers. It's only borne out because Sony released Horizon Zero Dawn this year, and Microsoft didn't really release any exclusives until Forza. And as you mentioned, Prime, Forza appeals to, I believe, a large number of people, but it's still kind of a niche genre in comparison to third-person action RPGs and first-person shooters. So It just doesn't have that resonating of an impact.
We keep going back, and I agree with. By the way, I agree with you that if you're talking like heavy hitters on Sony, up until Horizon Zero Dawn, I mean, Guerrilla Games, Killzone wasn't a what I would call a killer franchise, right? So I agree with you that the lineup is probably weaker. I mean, I guess Uncharted has its fans, and but we keep going back to perception, and we're talking a lot about exclusives versus third party and everything, and maybe it's just the fact that when Microsoft first announced the Xbox One, and they had that whole digital content, getting rid of the disc fiasco. They just completely stumbled out of the gate. Microsoft turned around and trumped them on it, saw the marketing opening and said, hey, we still have discs and we love the used game industry. And then it got followed up with the fact that you said, which I think is a great point, and we probably should not understate it. Sony threw a lot of money. When Madden's out, you see greatness awaits. And when Call of Duty comes out, you see, the blue and the triangle and the cross and the circle, the square. You're seeing that matched up. So is it just a simple matter of it's really not about first party versus third party, because Microsoft probably has some of the more sterling franchises, but because so many games now are no longer exclusives, as you said, for economic reasons, that Microsoft just understands marketing, and they just flat out outmarketed Microsoft and boxed them out this generation. And because a lot of people are buying PlayStations, they're seeing the exclusives on PlayStation and saying, hey, Sony's so much better than Microsoft right now, where is it? And you have that compounded with the fact that you said there might not be, with like the problems with getting the information on Halo out and everything.
Yeah, I think like you mentioned, we keep coming back to perception. I'm not saying that there's not a problem. I just don't think it's the problem that the media is pointing to. It's not the problem is not simply, hey, Microsoft doesn't have enough first party studios, right? I don't think that's the correct articulation of the problem. I think kind of like you mentioned, right? Microsoft has not voiced what their strategy is, and what that winds up the perception that winds up leaving is people see Sony grabbing the timed exclusives, right, away from Microsoft. They see them grabbing preferential treatment on the big third-party franchises, and they see them releasing some small number of exclusives. And so when you turn and you look at the comparison and conflate that with the fact that Xbox is behind in terms of user install base, you don't see the same new IP exclusives. Like Xbox, as far as I know and can think of, hasn't launched anything that is an exclusive in this console generation that people are looking forward to a sequel of.
I was about to say, man, you forgot about Recore.
No, I didn't forget about it. Everybody else is trying to forget about Recore. Is that exclusive on Xbox?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
They released it on PC as well.
Well, yeah. I mean,
too much fanfare.
Yeah. Let's not get started with the PC and stuff now.
Yes, I don't consider the launching on PC. I don't consider.
I mean, Sony will do that too. They'll just do Sony and PC. So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't consider that non-exclusive, right? I guess I always have this conversation in terms of console exclusive, and if it launches on PC too, that doesn't mean that it's not exclusive to a given console.
Right.
But I think what they see is they see Sony grabbing the third-party preferential treatment and timed exclusives predominantly. I see them releasing some exclusives, and I see them releasing some new unique IP. And then when you compare that to Microsoft, it's like you are kind of left like, what are they doing, right? The fact of the matter is that they are selling games. The fact of the matter is that they are selling units, but their identity from a marketing perspective is, I think, the blurriest it's ever been since the Xbox release. We know what the hardware is, and we know what the point of that is, but we don't know what the content strategy is in terms of building up and maintaining franchises with some frequency of releases. That's what we know is coming to Xbox is third-party titles, and we know that they're going to get theoretically Xbox Scorpio enhancements. But it's very difficult to articulate what the whole Microsoft content strategy is, whereas it seems to be clear on the Sony side. And I think, quite frankly, I think in the last 45 minutes, the three of us have done a better job articulating what the problem is than the masses of the tech and gaming journalism who are trying to say, well, the problem is they don't have enough exclusive content. So I don't know.
Well, yeah, I just find it weird though that they I don't want to say they're outbid, I guess, because I mean Microsoft should have been able to throw money at like Activision and a Bungie. Obviously they had owned them at one point, and you would have figured they would have had some kind of partnership, and then everybody thought that when Destiny was first announced, but Sony swooped in, and I mean I don't know if they just thought Destiny's not going to do anything, Call of Duty is going to it's on in the waning years, but it's not. It's starting to come back up. Maybe the last couple were a little shaky, the last couple Call of Duties, but I mean, World War II seems to be pretty well. It's being received pretty good. I don't know if it's the numbers seem to be pretty good, at least on the onset. So I mean, I don't know like what happened with those publishing deals and stuff like that. So I don't know. It's just weird. So. All right, so I think that's going to wrap it up for tonight, unless anybody has any other thoughts they want to throw out there. No. All right.
Nintendo understands software is awesome, and it's more important than the hardware. Well, but then again, as far as performance is concerned,
that's definitely an argument we need to have another day.
Yeah. I was going to say we didn't really talk about it not too much, but
yeah, I just need to throw Nintendo in there. And,
so although I agree with you on the premise, though, right? I don't think Nintendo in a lot of ways is part of this conversation because they don't have this. Whether it's a perception problem or a real problem, they don't have it.
Yeah, they have the third party problems. It's the other way around for them. So, and even that's starting to flip a little here on the Switch. Right. But yeah, I think we'll wrap it up there. We're actually going to get be on time here. I believe for once. So come back on Thursday. We'll have our new show with I believe it's DB and Swiss for the new show this coming Thursday, and then come back here on Tuesday for our topic. We'll see what we'll do this coming Tuesday. If it's just going to be topic and playlist, or maybe just playlist like we did a couple weeks ago. So we'll see. Also, check out Correction X, which is I guess Cleese and Mr. Dave Pesci. Their show, our entertainment show on The Gifted. Couldn't remember what it was. So catch that on a varying day. I don't think you guys have a set schedule, so just check that out on the GWW network. You can look it up. And I think that's it for tonight. I think that was a pretty healthy discussion there that we had going here. I think we could have kept going, but we'll cut it off and maybe I'll come back and visit it another time. So on behalf of SwissGuard and I guess Cleese, I am Osiris Prime. We'll see you next time.